Aloha, this is John, and I'm back today with my good friend Paul Klein. Paul has been an incredibly good friend of mine during my deconditioning process. Both of us being open ego, open throat individuals. We've had just a hilarious time with the antics of the open ego over the last 3 or 4 years together, and we're going to chat a little bit about those experiences today. Hey Paul.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
Right on.
Good.
You've been deeply involved in this experiment for
Yes.
some time now.
Right.
Yeah. The open ego,
Yes.
the curse.
Yes.
You want to talk about it?
Well, yes, it has been a curse for a great portion of my life.
Right.
However, understanding that it is a part of me,
Yeah.
as I've been released in a way.
Yeah.
Of course, from what you've taught me and learning and going through the experiment, understanding that need to prove that I've had my whole life, that one day I'm going to prove to everyone and to this person, my father, to know that is mechanically a part of me, yet it isn't a part of me, has been very helpful in the experiment. So, yes, it has been a curse, but knowing and being able to know when it's starting to happen has been very helpful, for sure.
And so, going through your own deconditioning process, and Paul's a high school teacher,
Yes.
and so here we have the movie of the whole thing on display.
Right.
The undefined ego at its
Right.
peak
Right.
performance.
Right. Right.
Chat about that a little bit with the kids. I mean, it's hard enough, it's easy to start to see in yourself, or maybe it's hard to start to see in yourself, but to look out there in the world and to see how many people want to prove themselves, or even then maybe even with the teachers, talk about high school.
Well, ironically, with the undefined ego and teaching high school,
Yeah.
it's actually been helpful. That's been one place where I've been able to not submit to the undefined ego. And as a teacher, it's helped me because there are so many people trying to prove things in the classroom setting.
Yeah.
And the thing that helped me as a teacher was to not get into the battle with the students, as bad as I want to. And also, and there was a time when you come from a place of superiority where you try to outdo the children or show them up. But I think being able to understand what the undefined ego is and being able to step back when they want to prove, you sort of dissolve it with the students. Now, as far as being a teacher and being in the realm of other teachers, it runs rampant because every teacher has to somehow prove how intelligent they are, how much they know. I don't know how many people are undefined in the teaching profession, but it seems like it attracts a lot of them. So in that way, it's in an in-service or in some kind of meeting, everyone has to stand up and say the most amazing thing or prove how much they know, and that's been really a challenge, I think, for a lot of teachers, but for me too, is being able to let go and not have to get involved with the students, not have to play their game, because again, I'll get caught up in trying to prove that I'm smarter, I have more power, and that's the road to disaster in a classroom for sure.
Yeah. So you've been experimenting with emotional awareness.
Right.
And learning to wait and transferring the awareness of your life away from the mind.
Right.
Yet, I mean, you've shared with me before, you go into this environment and it's a smorgasbord of people needing to make their mind position and defend it.
Right. Right.
How does that feel? I mean, is it comedy now?
It's definitely comedy. It's made me clear about wanting to not be involved in it much longer.
Yeah.
In the setting that I'm in now, in
Yeah.
a different way maybe, but yeah, it's been very much a comedy because it's a kind of this topsy-turvy world of who can prove, who can win. This competition that's really never been written. I mean, it's not a written or distinguished or established competition. However, everyone's involved in it, from the students to the teachers to the principals, and principals show up and they have their walkie-talkies, they have to prove that they're the principal, and then the teachers have to prove that they're the expert in their field, the students have to prove that they're the tough guy or the class clown. So yeah, it's just a hodgepodge of proving, and competing and winning. So.
Right. Emotional clarity. Talk about your emotional process. What has that meant to you to drop into that field of awareness?
That's been probably second only to knowing where I'm open.
Yeah.
That's been the most helpful thing that human design has given me. And it's funny, when you hear these things, you know that, you've always known it in your life, but you never wanted to listen because you're too busy in your mind trying to prove something, undefined ego or whatever. But I think the emotional process for me has been the most helpful, because looking back on my life in retrospect, anything that I initiated, that I wanted to have, anything that I tried to go and get immediately or work on impulse has always led to disaster. Even if there was a modicum or a layer of success on the outside, I'm laying up at night looking up at the ceiling in this turmoil. But anything that's ever happened to me that's taken time, that's gone over the process, has been meaningful, has had depth, and has been the things that last in my life. So now I'm just okay with it. Now I know that that's how it is. So I have to step back all the time and know that my process takes a long time, and that's been very helpful for me. That's been probably the most helpful.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely seen you ride waves with things.
Right.
Get very excited about them, and then 3 months later have a totally different perspective.
Right.
Because it doesn't happen fast.
Right.
It takes. Is that a relief?
Well, I think exactly, and you've seen that.
Yeah.
If I have this overwhelming, and a lot of times it's spleen, if I have this overwhelming need, now I know that that's the wrong thing. And back in the day, if I had this huge amount of attraction to it, that was the good thing. And then I would go into it 6 months later, the rest is history. But now when I realize if I have this strong attraction to something immediately, that's the first thing I have to do is step back. And you're like,
there's a caution flag.
Yeah, it's a caution flag.
If you need it, all of a sudden there's a yellow flag waving.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost immediately incorrect. And now I know, and I really feel strongly about this, and not the thing, but more just the mind saying this is going to be great. It's almost time to step back. That's almost an in a way. And so that's been the most helpful thing, to know that things have to take time. You know, the Portland thing, and we went back to Portland a few years later, and I was going to do it, and then 3 years later, I can't imagine if I'd have done it. So, but it's the same thing. It just takes the time to go through it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you and I have a lot of similarities in our design.
Right.
I'm always trying to figure out the past.
Right.
You're always worried about the future.
Right.
I mean, you get us together and it's like Heckle and Jekyll.
Right.
We're totally collective. We can see every problem in the world from different perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Do you see that your mind is always worried about the future?
Constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a constant event. Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Is it getting easier not to listen to it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely knowing that that's something that I have, and to know that, guess what? I can't worry about that. That's not. I can always think about things and plan, but for sure I know that the future is not. My mind is constantly there. Constantly.
Yeah. And the pull and the feeling of the need to move through experiences.
Yeah.
And then to share them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which in a sense isn't tribal.
Right.
Which is a little confusing sometimes when in a tribal environment, is it not? You know, in your family.
Right. Yeah.
You've got this deep need to go out and have all these experiences.
Right.
It's part of your circuitry.
Right.
Yeah.
And understanding that in the end, that experience is somehow helping to build for the collective. Seeing that has definitely been also been helpful, because people have always said, you need to stick with one thing. You need to. People have always told me this my whole life. If you just stick with something, if you just would hang your hat on one thing, you could be effective. But I always had this pull to go into that room and hang out for a minute, and then when I come out, I always have this information that I need. But people have always sort of discouraged that about me, and that's been very natural in my life. And it's cool to know that that's okay. I need a different surfboard in a few weeks, or a few months, a few years. That's okay to not want another one, to see how that one works, instead of people telling me I was always wrong.
Yeah.